Welcome back, guys. We're going to do a night flight here. I'm going to take off in a Cessna 172. As for all student pilots, this is probably what you're going to start off with before you get to the multi-motor planes, the acrobatic things, or the jets, or the big boys, like the Boeings or Airbuses. You start off with a Cessna, so you got to learn the Cessnas first. Let's go ahead and turn this yoke off. I used to call it a steering wheel when I first started. So, by the book, let's start. A pre-flight inspection is completed, seatbelts are adjusted, fuel selector valve is on. Both circuit breakers, nothing out of the ordinary, nothing is lighting up or sticking out. Circuit breakers are good, avionics and radios are off. Whoa, they were not. Everything was supposed to be off. Okay, let's see here. Mixture out. Looks like we're good. Alright, so pre-flight inspection complete, seatbelts adjusted, fuel selector valve on both, circuit breakers are all in, avionics radios are off, brakes are set, mixture is rich. We're going to prime the gas 3 times. There's the primer, and we leave it open at 1/4. Mixture is rich, carburetor heat is on cold, this thing doesn't have it. Throttle open at 1/4, we go for master on, beacon on, and now we engage. After yelling clear, so we're chasing for 1,000 RPM. Hopefully we nailed it. Let me set up the remote here. We're going off of the mouse and keyboard. Now we've got an Xbox remote for this. Plugged in. Alright, 1,000 RPM is check. Oil pressure at this RPM is green. Oil pressure is go. Avionics and radios on. They automatically set their frequencies. Avionics on and down frequency. Now lights as required. We want landing, taxi, navigation. That looked kind of cool. Let me see that. Landing, taxi, and navigation. Lights are on. Doors and windows are closed. Brakes are set. Mixture is rich. Now we up the power to 1,700. 1,700 RPMs. Let's get it right on there. 1,700 RPMs. From here we adjust the mixture, we pull, and we pull until it no longer rises. Still rising, let it adjust. Pull a little further, looks like it's right there. Mixture is adjusted. And with these RPMs, we check the magnetos. Check for the deviations of no more than 100 revolutions. Left magneto, no more than 100 DPS drop. We return to both and let it recover. After it's recovered, right magneto check. Right magneto, no deviation no more than 100. Right magneto is a go, so return to both, let it recover. And from this, we check the instruments with this RPM. Amperemeter charging, vacuum between 4 and 6. Oil pressure, oil temp is green. We are a go. Instruments are green, and we reduce to 1,000 RPM. This is where we ask for a taxi if we were in the hangars. And we roll with up to 1,300 RPM. Usually once we get some momentum, we reduce the throttle down from 1,300, and always keeping it between 1,000 and 1,300. Because otherwise the prop can turn off, kind of like a motorbike. You want to keep the engine revving a little bit while you're braking. Otherwise the engine can turn off. So just a couple of revs, especially in a cold day. So traffic and clearance, we've obtained it. We've reached the ramp, and so let's go for a takeoff right here. We are cleared to take off. We're going to want 1 point of flaps, and we're going to chase for this needle to move. That'll be our airspeed. Once the airspeed is moving, we communicate that to our pilot or co-pilot, mentioning airspeed live. And while we're going, we're chasing the center of runway, adjusting for that left-leaning deviation. As long as it's a prop plane, it's going to lean to the left. It's got a left-leaning tendency, so we want to Smack the right rudder a little bit. Not that much, so a little bit of right rudder. Maybe around there. That's what we're going to want. So we're releasing the brakes. And let's go for a maximum power takeoff, actually. Let's do maximum power takeoff, so it's going to be flaps at 10%. Gyro is adjusted beforehand. Let's see. Let's adjust this while we're at it. Looks like everything is adjusted here. If we're going to take off from 09er, and we're going to land on 09er, chasing this. The CDI needs to be centered, this little indicator. The needle, once we go around the airport, it's going to line up again. And this arrow is going to point towards the airport always. So when we take off, this arrow is going to point backwards. We go around, then we point at the airport, our nose at the airport, this thing is going to go up. And if this little line right here, the CDI, is lined up with east, we are where we want to head. We're going to land on 09er. Right there. Alright, so altimeters, gyro instruments are set, brakes are applied. Now we go for full throttle before releasing brakes. Alright, looks like everything is adjusted for a maximum power takeoff. And with full throttle and 1 point of flaps, we release the brakes. And don't forget that right rudder. Chase the center of runway. The gyro usually has a button you push, and it sort of adjusts itself. This is all digital. I don't think it has that. I don't think you can even push the dials. Alright, so we've had airspeed live, and right around that 65, this plane kind of takes off on its own. 65 knots in airspeed. Now we're going to have no visual references unless we consider that dashboard and the lights as a point of reference to sort of maintain 500 feet of ascension, which is what we're after. This airport is at 6,300 elevation above sea level. So at 6,600, right around here, is where we want flaps up and lights off. Now we keep beacon and navigation on. So we want taxi, landing off, and flaps up, and compensate so this thing doesn't go down, the nose down. We compensate by putting the nose up a little, not too much, but it gets a little difficult when the weather is broken. The simulation here is set for bad weather, so we're going to have turbulence and give ourselves a bit of a challenge here, keep things interesting. Keep that 500 feet of ascension, and according to our flight plan, let's say we want 7,500. Keep rising until we reach that 7,005. This will be our altitude here. Okay, looks like we're going to start reducing close to our cruising speed. See where we are. 275, we're heading west. Let's head west to not fly over the airport. And our cruising speed is going to be 2,300. If the plane wants to descend a little bit, you can just adjust the trim. 2003, there we are at cruising throttle. Looks like we're still rising, so we need to adjust the trim. So trim up for the nose down. Let's go ahead and help it with the yoke. Let's get the visual representation there. So we want this at 7,005. Once we cross the airport, we'll do a U-turn and head back to that landing spot. Our 09er, same place where we took off. This, you want below the 0 right now, in order for this to drop. Ideal descension is 500 feet. We're having some difficulty here, so let's adjust the trim up for the nose down, that way we don't have to push on the yoke so much. There we are, this is where we want to be in. Always adjusting the throttle, I mean. Looks like because of the broken weather, we are having an easy time ascending. The gust of wind, this thing goes right up. Especially with these conditions at night. Flying in the cold, you have a lot more lift. Particles in the environment are denser. See if the airport's nearby. Don't see it. I think I see it. This might be the runway right there. Runway and taxi. Let's go ahead and fly around here. These are very delicate joysticks. An actual yoke is a little easier. Let's adjust the trim a little. We're descending, naturally descending. Established around 7,005 where we want to be, so let's not deviate too much. Looks like there's a lot of fluctuations from where we have a lot of lift and where we don't. So we just adjust slightly, small adjustments. We don't want to be pushing or pulling the yoke too much, so that's where the trim comes in. Adjust the trim to not fight the yoke so much. Far enough away from the airport. Let's line up with 09er. Looks like we haven't crossed the station yet. Would this be the airport? Without the ability to actually see it, it gets difficult. So we're going to go off of the radials. Let's line up with radial 09er. Looks like airport is behind us. This is what this is pointing to, but that can't be accurate if this is the airport we took off from. It should be to our right. So let's go ahead and cross this and then line up with a radial 09er to then do a 180. Unless I'm getting this wrong. Let's see, let's try to correct. We took off 09er. How do we end up here? We flew west. We just got away from the airport. Let's line up with 09er and maybe this will make sense. Otherwise, if we do a 180 here, we're going to land on 27. So let's fly this way. Let's go 135, which is a 45-degree angle from the east. It'll help us get to our radial a little faster. Then we can start making sense of where we are. According to me, we should have been over here chasing 09er. Let's hope for that CDI to be live soon. Alright, we got it. CDI live. And let's join 09 slowly. A little slower. Let's maintain this. 105. $100. 195. Let's maintain slightly above 09er. CDI still marking it's a little to our left. So let's fly 95. And looks like we are there. Established on runway 09er, 5 miles from station, so we are east from the station. And if we do a 180 here, we're going to land on runway 27. Not as intended. So we're going to practice IFR. With 0 visual references, it's difficult to see where you are, to know where you are. Put this on 27. Alright, airport is above us. Let's ascend. We just had too much there. Ideally at 500 feet of climb. Radial 09er is a little to the left. Alright, I see it. There's our airport. So if we land here, that's going to be runway 27, not where we took off from, so let's go around here. Let's keep ascending. Let's go full throttle to ascend. Trim down so our nose goes up. Let's stick to the plan. We wanted to land on 09er, we're going to land on 09er. Let's say that was a go-around or something. That'll be our excuse. Alright, we're at 7,005, our target altitude, so let's descend or reduce throttle, chasing 2,300 RPM to not ascend anymore. It's like blue lights right under the taxiway. See where our trim is. Trim is slightly above neutral. So our nose doesn't rise so much. That's a good thing to do, to be able to identify where you are. So as we get closer to the airport, CDIs get all messed up and inaccurate. So let's get a little further from the station. We're a mile and a half away. These are measured in nautical miles. You gotta be a little international with your scales and measurements. Something interesting is that English, even in countries that don't primarily speak English, it is a must for aviation. Let's get about 2 miles away from the airport. We're at 1.6. Common practice in aviation is not saying point, but decimal. So 1.7 is where we are at. 1.8 outbound. Okay, we're at 2 miles. Let's start checking where we are. Okay, at 2.5. And start incorporating into a radial. If airport is behind us, we are heading whiskey. And whiskey says go to the right to incorporate into my radial. So let's try a 45-degree angle to the right. Let's see, for whiskey that's 270. That's 315 if I counted that right. Let's fly 315 for a quicker interception. 270, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Plus 5, that's 315. But we have a CDI live. So let's lean to the left. Chasing whiskey slowly, a little slower than how I'm going. Miles outbound, still at 7,005, heading 278, chasing that radial. You're just about whiskey. Right about there. We're established on a radial whiskey, and now we want to do a 180. 180, and try to stay in the same radial. It's not descend or ascend. Keeping it leveled turn. Around there. We're at 5 miles inbound. So now we're using the top VOR. We're chasing Echo. The little arrow points to the top, that's where airport is. And Echo says lean to the left to chase the radial. And I think I got airport in sight, runway in sight. I'm not gonna do this anymore. And let's start our slow flight. Slow flight being 2,000 RPM. We're going to chase a white arc on our airspeed. We're in green still. We want white. Once we're in white, we're going to go 1 point to flaps. And you want to start descending. So that 7,005 is irrelevant now. Let's go 1 point to flaps. Don't let it descend anymore, so nose down. Keep that throttle. Don't lose too much airspeed. I think we can trim up a little bit to chase that 500 feet of ascension. Here we are. Blue is taxi, white is runway. Let's descend a little further. Let's see our miles. 3 miles. Let's recoup some speed. I think I might see one red pappy. It's still difficult to see. I think I see 3 white, 1 red. And if I can see right, that's 2 red, 2 white now. And back to 3 white, 1 red. There we are. There we are. Alright, it's 3 white, 1 red. Let's pull throttle. There it is, 2 and 2. Throttle is completely out. And we're navigating primarily with our rudders now. Let's recoup some speed. We got 3 red now. And 4 red, that's no good. Recoup speed. Gonna start to flare. Pull the throttle. And there we are. You know, we forgot taxi and landing again. Every time. So just let it roll, let it roll. Let's put the flaps up. We got all this runway, we can use all this runway. You introduce brakes too soon, you're gonna have some issues. So we can start braking. Light touch, and we can do full brakes here. This is what we needed. Landing and taxi, this is what we forgot. It would have probably been easier with those. Let's set these up, and let's do our after landing checklist. Let's reduce power to 1000 RPM. We needed to ascend power, there it is. 1000 RPM, flaps up. The flaps were already up. Flaps up is check, lights off. Now we do landing, taxi, and navigation. We keep beacon on. So lights are off, radio's off now. For radio's off, we hold this button here until display is off, counterclockwise here, and counterclockwise here, until both displays are off. Then radios and avionics go off with this button. So radios and avionics are off, mixture off, get a look at the propeller, and wait until the propeller stops moving and it's at a complete standstill. There it is. Mixture off. Now it's magnetos off. Check. Beacon off. And master off. Leaving the fuel selector valve on both since this Cessna 172 doesn't have an off. So that is our checklist by the book for takeoff and landings. If we had to do some emergency IFR. Wouldn't be too complex, you just go off your instruments. You're not going to go off of visual references outside of the cockpit. Not really, just to look at the airport and see where you are based on it. Otherwise, line up with a radial and go off with that radial like I did when I got lost. I was completely lost. Joined a radial, figured out where I was, did a 180, and based on the miles, whether they were ascending or descending, I got an idea of where I was. If they're descending, we're heading towards the airport, and eventually you can get that visual reference. Go around that and stick to the original plan, which is where we are on runway 09, or where we landed. Is there a way to check? Let's see. So this is where we got lost. Found a radial, did a 180, saw the miles descending, got close to the airport, visual reference, and original plan to land on runway 09er. So this is the airport on the left. This is 09er where we took off from. And this would have been 270 right here if we landed from here where we were. So MMQT, airport on the left, and this is 09er. Let's go ahead and double check that. Yep, runway 09er. And let's triple check where 27 is. It should be right here. Yes, exactly. So we stuck to the original plan even after getting lost with IFR. The mistake we made was not using these lights before landing. I always forget that. But hopefully that helps. If you somehow find yourself lost, go ahead and join a radial and check your miles, whether they ascend or descend. So, hope you guys, to see you guys in the next session.